Perfect.
Okay, great. All right, so sorry about that. Just a little bit of, it always wants to do the wrong thing when I start here. But my name is Greg Tchaikovsky. I'm with Microsoft. I'm a channel executive in our device partner sales and solutions organization, which basically means that I work with HP on all things in the US commercial channel that are Windows and Microsoft 365 related. And today I want to talk to you about Windows 11. So first off, let's talk about why we made Windows 11. Like, Windows 10 is great. For the longest time, the story was that we would just keep updating feature bands to Windows 10 and just keep it going forever and ever. And the truth is, things are a little bit different now. Things are a little bit crazy. We've got a sort of hybrid work paradox here coming up that we need to try to address and solve for. So what you see here is that, according to a recent study, we found that 73% of our commercial workers in the United States, and really the world, want to continue having the flexible remote work options that they kind of got used to before and during the pandemic. So, we were already kind of headed this way before the pandemic started. It really just sped us along at a rapid pace. So at the same time, though, a lot of us are getting tired of just being physically isolated from each other, and we want more in-person work or collaboration. Here we see an overlap. We can't have both of these things be true unless there's some overlap, and they do seem like they're mutually exclusive, but they're not. We want both. We want to be more flexible. We want to have those remote options, but we also want to be able to work in person when it makes more sense and have that human connection. So how do we solve for this? Well, Windows 10 is a great operating system, but we found that with Windows 11, we're able to kind of do a little bit more and really think things through for this new era that we're in now, which I really think in a lot of ways is going to be here to stay just from a productivity standpoint. So Windows 11 is really designed to answer this hybrid work scenario that we find ourselves trying to solve for. So first of all, there's a slightly refreshed interface that's designed to be less stressful. And this is kind of a recurring theme with Windows 11. We want you to feel just take the opportunity to breathe, relax, understand that this is not going to be a stressful upgrade path. This is not going to be something that you have to relearn everything for. Things are designed to be familiar, but also a little bit easier to get to than maybe they were in Windows 10 and past operating systems. So we want you to be a little bit more productive. We want you to feel less stressed being productive. We've all got so much going on right now, from the meetings that are layered over to text messages happening over emails, happening over Teams messages, happening over Zoom messages. That's a lot of cognitive overload, and trying to make sure that this information comes at us in a way that we can actually manage it without being so burned out at the end of our workday is part of the thought process that went into Windows 11 Pro. On that note, we decided to make things a little bit more collaborative. And what that means is that Teams is more natively integrated with Windows 11. And by the way, Zoom is too, so that the experience is less of a resource hog and more of a natively easy to use solution set. We're going to be using Teams, we're going to be using Zoom for the foreseeable future. It's become a very handy tool to help us even as we return to our hybrid in-person at-home work environments. Next, we had to make sure that app compatibility was going to be something that we solved for. That was something that was very, very important for us as we journeyed from Windows 7 and 8 to 10, and it continues to be very important. Obviously, there are a lot of you out there who have homegrown applications, and you want to make sure that you're supported in your journey to Windows 11. We do have app remediation services for those applications that might have a little bit of trouble coming up, but it's important to note that 99.99% of applications that run in Windows 10 will run in Windows 11 too. And those that we need to manage through the cloud, we can also bring in some additional cloud tools to help manage that migration path. Lastly, this is kind of table stakes at this point, but we need to make sure that our operating system and our entire environment is secure. And from that standpoint, we need to make sure that we have a zero trust ready operating system running on a secured core. So we can do a lot to protect our operating system and to protect the security and the environment around that and how our users interact. But true security starts at the core of the device. And that's where HP comes into play with their zero trust secured core PCs, which they do have through Wolf Security. So they've been a fantastic partner for us. So lastly, we want to make sure that we have the ability to have an operating system that works across multiple different design factors and invites new, exciting ways to interact with our technology in the way we work. And so that's the last bullet for Windows 11, is we want to make sure that it's easy and flexible for a range of different devices. I'm going to skip these animations because frankly, I forgot they were there and they do serve to underline what I'm talking about, but we'll just move on. All right, so let's start with productivity. So we've got what we call a cognitive overload reducing technology with Windows 11 Pro. So you see what's going on here in that little animation. It's called Snap Widgets and Snap Screens. What this is doing basically, it's allowing you to customize your screen real estate easily so that you can keep multiple applications open without having to do that crazy Alt Tab kind of dance to get between the ones that you want to see and the ones that you are seeing. This also allows you to share information between your applications much more easily. And again, it gives you the ability to see things just by kind of shifting your eyes around the screen rather than having to stressfully Alt Tab through a whole bunch of open applications that you're trying to manage through. Again, the idea here is to make things easy and to keep things functional and make your technology work for you in this new environment. You can also use widgets once again with Windows 11, which is a fantastic thing to do if you just kind of want to glance at an application and get a quick view of what's going on without having it eat up your entire screen. And lastly, we've got working natively using pen, voice, and touch being kind of next level with Windows 11. So we've got an auto mute feature right from the taskbar. If you're in a meeting and you're just kind of, or if you're on the fly, you're in someplace public like a coffee shop or an airport terminal, we want to make sure that the background distractions of an environment like that don't interfere with how you're doing your job. And so there are ways that we have that allow you to just instantly mute that microphone without having to kind of find where that button is within the application itself. We're going to continue to endorse people working with their pen with a stylus, and that's going to be something that continues to grow in functionality with Windows 11 as well. A lot of people find that they learn and retain information better when they actually write it out with their hand using a pen versus typing it. And I find that to be true for myself. And if you just want to quick jot a note down, being able to do that with pen or just edit an application with your touch pen, that's more possible with Windows 11 than it was even with Windows 10. So let's take a look at how things work with the start menu and the snap notifications and quick settings. So here you see, of course, the start button is now in the middle, so it's shifted a little bit, but it's still not hard to find. And you see that you can find your information and quick calendar views all within Windows 11 itself without having to open up your Outlook, even though the Outlook is still running and is part of it. So the information that you're looking for is still there, and it's just easy to find. It's just not cluttering up your screen and giving you that sense of frantic, too much at once feeling. So just a quick example of how things are a little bit different, a little bit more improved, and still there when you need them in Windows 11. Let's take a look at snap layouts and snap groups. So here we see that we can customize between 2, 3, 4 apps at the same time and have our laptop or our device remember these app groups so that we can easily reopen them in the future and start to work amidst 4 different applications as we like. This also extends to our docking experience. So how many of us are in a situation like this right now where we've got a dock device and we have to unplug it at certain points and then plug it back in? Well, it's nice for Windows 11 in that when you unplug it, it will shift your real estate to the smaller screen. But when you plug it back in, it remembers how you had things set up with that extra screen there to help, and allows you to just quickly remember and get right back to work without having to manually kind of put all those different shared screen applications back into place. It's just another easy way that Windows 11 is making our jobs easier to do, as we kind of are in an environment where stuff like this is, it's like a bigger deal and a bigger part of what we're doing. So collaborative, I mentioned quickly before that Windows 11 has Microsoft Teams more natively embedded into the code. So that actually is helpful on a couple of different fronts. First of all, it means that your device will not chug running Teams in Windows 11 as hard as it had to work with Teams in Windows 10 when it was really sitting on top of the Windows 11 operating system and all those processes, or Windows 10, I should say. Windows 11, it's natively integrated, which means your device doesn't have to work as hard. It's already kind of doing all of that. But in addition to that, we can chat right from our taskbar. We can auto blur the background. We can auto have AI kind of mute background noises, even when we can't reach that easy to hit button in the corner. And we can instantly bring things from our other windows into our chat meetings. It's just a much more seamless integration. Teams has been great for us. Zoom is a great option as well. But this actually kind of next levels it for us. So I'm really, really excited. And I can tell you as a Windows 11 user, obviously I'm not objective in this, but I've found that I get more out of my Teams experience, which I'm on all day, every day, with Windows 11 than I did ever with Windows 10. So again, here we are focusing on the meeting at hand, able to use our AI solutions to auto blur your background when distracting things come in. We've all seen the video of the CNN anchor who was taking a call when his kid busted through the door in the back. Sure, it was fun for a meme and it was cute, but distractions like that, we're all facing them as we kind of work in places that we're not used to having worked before. Having AI cover our backs and make sure that our background, both from a visibility and an audio perspective, is blurred or noise canceled out, kind of takes that stress and FUD of, oh, the kids are fighting downstairs. I've got to make sure that I mute out so that they don't hear that on the call. And now I've missed my chance to speak. You're kind of covered in Windows 11 with Teams. It's really, really a cool feature and technology to be able to add to it. And here we have that one button mute and unmute from the taskbar when you really need it as kind of a panic button. It's just there, and it's just something that's easy. So here we have a quick little video here that just shows somebody kind of taking all this stuff that I talked about and putting it into use. So here she is, kind of just somebody walks by, maybe they're talking loudly on their phone. It's not an issue with Windows 11 with what we're doing. All right, so consistent. Let's talk a little bit about app compatibility with Windows 11. We can make sure that we migrate with confidence because we have this App Assure promise and a remediation team where we do run into any issues that may come up in our homegrown applications going from 10 to 11 or 7 to 11 if you're making a bigger jump. It's important, though, to note that Windows 10 and Windows 11 run on very similar cores. So a lot of what ran on Windows 10 is going to run on Windows 7. This is really just kind of covering the dusty corners of what we need to make sure that we have to ensure a very, very clean upgrade path for everybody from an application standpoint. So those applications and the adoption of those applications can be managed through the cloud, through Microsoft Endpoint Manager and Intune with Windows 11 as well. We also have enhanced Autopilot support, which I'll get into in a moment for those of you that are unfamiliar with Autopilot. Another great service that we have to help with making sure that when we're scaling out a new device fleet, that it's as easy to do as possible with as few touch points as possible. And then, of course, we have our security story, which with HP is top class. I mean, HP has their Wolf security suite. They've been forefront with their world's most secure PC messaging, which is something that they don't say lightly. The fact that we have this technology with them really helps to kind of just amplify our story together. So Windows 11 has powerful built-in security. It has malware protection. It has app kind of containerization so that if something should happen to one of your applications, it's isolated and kind of put in its own virtual machine container so that it doesn't impact or infect or compromise any other applications that are also running. We also have more easily enabled Windows Hello for Business, which can use your face, your retina, your fingerprints, all sorts of things to avoid having to log in manually your digital password for Azure Active Directory. The fewer times that we have to key that in, the fewer instances that we have of that being captured by keyloggers or other bad actors that are out there. It's just another way to make sure that our security is not only easier for us to use, but also better and more enhanced. And lastly, we can do cloud config for our Windows 11 device from afar to make sure that we're setting it and our policies across our user fleet so that only curated apps have the ability to run and only our trusted applications are running in an environment from a corporate standpoint. So this is really how we view application. It's really very layered, and it starts with the hardware, and that's where our root of trust has to be enabled. HP's SureStart does that for us. They've been doing it before we required it for Windows 11, but now we're making sure that it has to be something that all Windows 11 devices have enabled by default so that it's very secure from the core. That's the most important part of a device. If that gets compromised, it's really hard to dig your way out of that and recover that device. From there, we take over with our operating system. So not only does HP have SureStart, which reviews all the lines of code that start in the BIOS and the kernel to make sure that nothing is awry. And if anything is, it reverts to its most pristine recent save state and then restarts from there so that bad actors have a real hard time in gaining a foothold in that core. We do that at our operating system level with our system guard. We do it at our application level by containerizing our applications. We do it at the identity and user level by making sure that we've encrypted your digital password hash so that it can't be easily gained. Someone does gain access to your house, they'll find your keys in a safe rather than sitting on the end table. That's kind of how I like to think about that. And then, of course, at the cloud level, we have advanced threat protection of Microsoft 365 enabled, along with the great cloud security solutions that HP offers through their services. So let's talk a second about Autopilot. So we like to say it's so easy, it's just like magic. For our users and for our employees in the field, that's what we want. We want them to be able to have a device shipped to them. They unbox it, they open it up, and on first boot, as soon as they log in, the device recognizes who they are and immediately starts to provision that device automatically so that it's designed for their work experience right away, without any stops at an IT desk along the way, which we know is a choke point. So when we're talking about refreshing massive device fleets, which we're going to be doing as we get more and more inventory in, and we start with our new HP Gen 9 products that are just fantastic and cutting edge, we want to make sure that when we refresh with these devices, we're doing it in a way that does not provide us additional headaches. And that's where Autopilot comes in. So what it basically does is, rather than have a device have to be manually imaged and provisioned by a very overtaxed IT desk, that device ships directly to an end user. And based on a process that we do beforehand, where we marry the user's Azure Active Directory information to the device information, that way, when the device boots up, it automatically knows how to do this. And Autopilot just takes care of that kind of provisioning layer. From there, we can shake hands with Microsoft Endpoint Manager or Intune and be able to download all the applications that they need if they're not there yet. And just like that, that user is often running without having to wait or have their device manually shipped off to an IT desk. It's just right to them. When you think about refreshing at scale, this is an absolutely fantastic tool. And we find that it's changing our win rate with Windows devices and with HP by being front-footed with this solution set. So it's really very easy. The idea here is for a user, from 25 minutes getting off the ground with a new device, it becomes just seconds. And by the way, when we talk about existing devices, if something should happen, HP has a technology called Sure Recover, which even if the device is wiped down to bare metal, there's nothing left on the hard drive, from the kernel, HP can reboot and reinstall the operating system. And then from there, the user can just type in their Azure Active Directory as if it was the first boot again and get it re-provisioned and be up and running. That's a fantastic story to be able to tell, and really talks about HP's resilience with their devices paired with a technology like Autopilot. All right, I know I'm moving fast, but I wanted to get to a few more things before I run out of time here. And one of those things is Windows 11 SE. So this is a specialized thing that you may have heard about. I just wanted to spend a second to make sure that you all understand what it is. So for our education devices, we've come with a new flavor of Windows 11 called Windows 11 SE that is designed to be even more streamlined and more centrifugal to lower cost devices, to allow Microsoft to better compete in that space and allow that full Windows experience for our learners, as they're especially working from home, to have an easier experience working with teams in a remote environment, and to have more control so that there's less risk for our students using a full-blooded machine like a Windows device. So really, it's designed to be preloaded with Microsoft Office. It is designed to only use applications that have been trusted and tested and are available through the Windows and Microsoft Application Store. It is designed to work seamlessly with third-party applications as well. So when we think about, once again, that natively integrated Teams experience, or even Zoom or Chrome experience, we can bring that to a device running Windows 11 SE. So I want to make sure that when you hear Windows 11 SE, you have an understanding of what it is, where it's coming from, what the mentality is behind it, and why we're doing it. So this not only allows us to get to a lower cost from a licensing standpoint, but from a hardware standpoint as well, because we don't need as robust a set of hardware to run a student level device. We obviously know that our educators are in a situation where they need to furnish devices at a low cost, and they shouldn't have to compromise with a non-Windows device. This gets us to that point. So just real quick, there are some special things that Windows 11 can do and can't do. It is not an option that can be toggled on and off. You may have heard of S mode or Windows 10 S a few years ago. That was similar to this, but Windows SE is permanent. So if you see a Windows 11 SE device, know that that's what it's for. And it's not going to be a device that you're going to want to use outside of a very simple, streamlined environment. This will be an option for HP's Fordisk devices, which I think Nancy's going to talk about next. But just know that that is what you're looking at when you see Windows 11 SE. All right, I'm going to move real quick here because I think I'm over now. So how do you get a Windows 11 device? Well, number two is just to get one with general availability. HP will be launching Windows 11 pre-installed devices with their Gen 9 fleet. I can't wait for it. It's coming soon. But for now, most of your devices that you're already getting are Windows 11 compatible. And you can either upgrade managed or unmanaged, depending on how you like to have your environments run. So real quick, on premises, you can do it through Windows Update for Business. Yes, it can be installed as an update, even though it's so much more than that. You can do it through SCCM or Endpoint Analytics. If you want to do it via the cloud, once again, you can do it through your GPMC, MEM Intune, or Windows Update for Business again, or with Update Compliance or Endpoint Analytics. And lastly, we do host and support several third-party management tools to get you there as well. Or the customer, your users, if you're in an unmanaged environment, will just get a note one day saying that their device is ready to upgrade. And when that day comes, they can just click the button, do a standard Windows update, and voila, they're running Windows 11. So you want to make sure that you're looking at these different things as you're preparing to embrace Windows 11. You want to make sure that you're looking at your applications and making sure you're using Aperture to classify and test them in a Windows 11 environment before you make that migration. And we want to make sure that we're embracing Microsoft Endpoint Manager as well. With that, I'm going to turn things over to Nancy. So thank you very much.
Okay, let me pull up my screen real quick, and hopefully this is, tell me if it's coming through. I got a big yes. I'll take that as a yes. Hi, let me see here. Yep, there we go. Nancy Bowman with HP, and I help to manage our mobile solutions. So as we go through this, I'll give you some quick updates, some tidbits about what 2022 looks like, as well as some guidance on when we should be transitioning products and things like that. So when we look at the overall portfolio for commercial notebooks for 2022, we have some exciting things going on, and namely some highlights that I'll go through real quick. But starting on the left-hand side here, we continue to have our 400 series. It's a transactional product that we highly promote. But the biggest thing is really around our 600 series. So when you look at this slide, you can see on the top, and it starts to talk about board refresh. And really, when you think about the 600 and the 400 series, it really is a board refresh with the latest and greatest technology. However, the chassis will remain the same. Now, in our 600 series space, we used to sell that a lot. Well, we continue to, but into the federal space. A couple generations ago, the 600 series used to be a big, bulky kind of platform, to be quite honest. In our current generation of G8s and going into the G9 that we're refreshing, the form factor of our 600 series is much sleeker. However, what was always making it as a something in the federal space that they really liked was some of the legacy features that we always had in it. And we're continuing to carry through some of those legacy things, but also bringing in, again, enterprise essential features into the 600 series, which make it an elite product. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of those exciting things that are coming into it. But just note that we are elevating the 600 series. We're also bringing in a 14 and a 15-inch of AMD, so a 645, as well as a 655, 14 and 15-inch into the AMD on the 600 series, which is great. And we're really excited about promoting that as well. But, and I'll delve into that a little bit. But as you move to the right a little bit more with the elite products, the 800 and 1000 series and into the Dragonfly high-end premium stuff, what you're going to find here is a refresh in the ID. So we call it a chassis change. We typically tend to transition our products from a chassis perspective every 2 years. So we're on the beginning of that next refresh cycle in terms of chassis. And what comes with this one is a big change for us in terms of the aspect ratio and the display. So we're moving from 16:9 which the 600 series will stay on. But in the Elite 800 and above, we're going to a 16:10 aspect ratio. And we'll talk about why that's pretty cool and helps with some of these transitions with Windows 11 in a minute. But just so note that it is a chassis change going to this latest generation of G9s. For the current G8s, I want to, before I forget to mention, we have extended the life cycle of the current Elite 800 G8s. They will last until all the way to March of 2023. Does that mean that we want you to stay on those forever? No. We're managing a transition throughout 2022 between G8s, the current platforms, and when we're getting to the next generation with G9s. So my guidance to you would be through probably the end of summer timeframe, we're probably pretty safe, staying on what you're on. But I want you to start to familiarize yourself with G9s when we introduce them in the March timeframe. And, if you need to test something, but get familiarized with that, because I would say in terms of a transition timeframe, look at that August, September timeframe to start really making sure you're ready to go with G9s, because with the supply standpoint and how the outlook for 2022 looks like, it's something that we're monitoring. Do we have to make a fast transition, a slow transition? But that's where we don't want everything to drag out to the very last minute on current product and not be ready for the next gen product. So, and I'll talk about some of the features why we should get excited about the next generation of G9s. But just again, from a transition standpoint, we're okay with G8s. Get ready for G9s probably in the end of summer timeframe. And then in the 1000 series, one of the big changes is not only, again, it's going to the 16:10, so there's a new form factor change. In the 1000 series, we're going to be moving away from the X360 1030, so a 13-inch form factor. We are keeping our 14-inch X360, but we're also introducing a clamshell of a 1040, so a very sleek, magnesium, great product in terms of lightness, battery life, and latest technology, but in a clamshell design. So if you happen to be on the X360 1030, there's alternatives to either go up to a Dragonfly, which is, just a cool, amazing product, or we also have an X360, that 830 that we talked about is the giveaway. We're continuing with the X360 design in a 13-inch in the 800 series space. So you have alternatives to go to. And then Dragonfly is really our premium products. We introduced that with a lot of cool new features. And then you'll see we bring out new cool things with that. And it kind of waterfalls down to the other series. But you're always going to find kind of that premium experience, premium, with a Dragonfly type product. Okay. So going to the next one, some of the high level features as we're going to the next generation. We talked about the panels. So the panels going from that 16:9 and an 800 and above, 800 and 1000 series really, to the 16:10. The other thing that we're seeing and I'm not sure if you all are thinking about this, but we're finding that between a 14 and a 15-inch product, in certain series, some are dominating. So the 15-inch is really starting to take off, especially in the 600 series space and growing in the 800 series. And I think we attribute this more to this hybrid work that we're doing, where we're setting up home environments. We're looking for productivity units that have larger displays. Whereas before, when we were traveling around a ton, we wanted light, thin, 13-inch was growing. So we still have 13-inch, of course, in our portfolio, but we are seeing, and again, I think it's something for y'all to think about, is what type of end users do I have in my environment? Do they need larger displays? Because maybe they're just working from home primarily, or maybe sometimes going into the office, but that real estate slide dimension of a display in front of them is a key thing. So maybe I can go up to a 15-inch, and again, it's really about understanding the end users within the environment and what's best for them in terms of trade-offs with light, size, battery life, and things like that, those kind of trade-offs for the end users. So when we go to the 800 series, we won't be calling it an 850 G9, it will be an 860 G9. And then as well, before I forget, also in our mobile workstation space. So we've got our entry Firefly products, and today on the G8s, it's a 14 and a 15-inch Firefly. The 15-inch will also transition to a 16-inch with this next generation coming out, okay? The other thing around, processor performance, we've got an array of different wattage processors, so it brings different performance. So options there. So latest with 12th generation of products or processors coming out with this next generation. And then as well, a little bit of differentiation between our 600 series and our 800 series is that in 800 and above, we are transitioning with this latest generation to DDR5. We'll be on DDR4 with the 600 series, but what DDR5 brings is, along with the processor, the new technology, you're just getting that much better in terms of performance and battery life in the next generation of products. And then Wi-Fi 6 extended is also a new thing. Being able to have just that better connectivity, even expanded, is always really, really important. So we've got the latest on that. And then the last thing I'll kind of call out, which we've heard feedback from, is really around, again, these collaboration solutions. So it's not only audio, but also, the cameras that we put into our products. People have been giving us feedback that they're really looking for, that improved experience with the camera. So in our next generation of products, we do have 5-megapixel cameras. And it's not just an off-the-shelf camera, like, okay, we have a spec for a camera and okay, check. There's so much more that goes into even that kind of technology from HP. We've got engineering behind it. So it's not really an off-the-shelf camera. It's an improved experience that you only get from HP. So, a camera is not a camera, not a camera. When you're talking about some of the technologies that HP is putting in, we typically put in, there's other engineering that make it for optimal experience, even when it comes down to something you think is as simple as that. So real quick, just why, and to Greg's point around Windows 11 experience, one of the advantages coming with going to this new aspect ratio is that we're able to see more display size. So we always say, we say we can see more below the line. So if you start I'll start on the right-hand side here with the 16:9. You see a certain, amount of space. As you move to the 16:10, you can see the angle is going up higher and you're able to see more on that display. We still have very small bezels in our products. So just because things are getting bigger doesn't mean that you're getting a big bulky experience or anything. We want that screen to body ratio to still be very optimal so that you've got, not only does it look good, but you're staying that much more productive. And I would say real quick from a productivity standpoint, I've noticed that working with Excel and things like that, when you switch displays and you see sometimes you have to minimize the font so you can get more into the display. So from a productivity standpoint, as you go to 16:10, you don't have to minimize things as much in order to see more in the screen. So it just helps in enhancing that kind of experience as well. So we're excited for that. And I think with the experience of Windows 11 being a little bit more of a work life, and again, you're doing apps on it that you do after hours on your productivity unit, you're going to get that better experience that Windows 11 is trying to drive. So let's just really talk a shout out for that 600 series again. Why is it so exciting that it's going to Elite? Well, it brings that enterprise grade performance, like we say, into this space. But along with Elite, you get also HP Elite support. So anything that's Elite, with that support, you get stateside. So you're calling in if you happen to need, any help. You're getting somebody based in the US 24/7. You can set up calls, on your schedule to actually talk with somebody on our end. But really it elevates it. And that's a big value in terms of just, being able to get things fixed and resolved, to have that kind of elevated support that you get with an Elite product. And now the 600 series has it. Another thing when I talked about the background of the 600 series and some of those legacy features. Another key thing is that our 600 series continues to have that RJ45 port. We've removed that altogether from the 800 series, I think with the last generation, so it's been out of there, but we continue to have it in the 600 series, which again is one of those features that in the public sector space has really still been required. We also have an option for expanded solid state drive, so a second drive, which, you know, that's pretty interesting in this space. And then we've got a whole thing around experiences, and again around audio, visual, you know, what goes into our speakers. I don't use a headset any longer myself. I moved away from that and I'm just using the integrated audio mics and speakers, and that kind of making that experience really good, just for the fact that you've got so many background noises that come into play. It will, based on AI, block a lot of those things out so that you're having a good experience and you don't have to worry so much about phones ringing and dogs barking and children running around in the background sometimes. So trying to make that overall kind of what we say, the hybrid experience, that much better is being introduced across the board as well. And then around serviceability, this is still a very easy upgradable type product. And then we have some security features around HP tamper lock that you can also integrate into this. But a lot of those good things coming out with the 600 series that you might want to take a look at. Then again, a quick shout out for the HP Fordisk. So we're introducing this new brand of Fordisk, which means rugged and strong, into our portfolio. And really it's kind of a rebranding in a sense of our ProBooks, X360 and some of our Chrome type stuff into this Fordisk brand, for the fact that we have a lot of customers that are saying, I really need something that is rugged. And we've never, our education products are extremely rugged. We know the end users are really tough on our products. So it goes through a ton of mil-spec testing, plus additional testing that HP does on these products. So we've had customers say, I need something like that, but I don't want it to necessarily be in education. So we were almost pigeonholing ourselves in this product to education, where it really can expand to other segments, such as, you know, working in a warehouse, field work, home health, as well as education, of course. So we're expanding it, so both for education and other segments with this Fordisk new branding. So people can start to consider it a little bit more broadly. We've got a couple of products that are being launched with this ProBook space in the X360 and the 14-inch, so 11-inch and 14-inch solutions with this. And the other thing too, I didn't mention it on this as well, and I'll go back to it, is really around LTE. So LTE in this space, and for those segments that we were talking about, being outside working, is really important, and you're going to be able to get LTE support on these products as well. And then the last thing I'll just do really a quick shout out is around our ZBooks. Again, we've announced the next generation of 14 and 16-inch in our Firefly products. And again, it's that entry product where you're doing 2D type stuff, you're going into video editing and things, you know, light video type stuff. This is the Firefly products, a great introduction into, you know, where you need ISV certification, you're doing certain applications around that engineering. But again, for real power users within an office environment, the Firefly products are that great introduction for, you know, a step up from a regular business notebook to a real power user. And then I'll just mention that we are including the Wolf Pro Security Edition, which is increased virus protection of both known and unknown viruses that are out there, as well as it provides a secure browsing experience, so that if you open up something that has a virus, it doesn't infiltrate your system, or, you know, if you're connected to a network. But we're introducing the Wolf Pro Security Edition on all of our smart buys. It's a 1-year edition, so that's something of great value to people when there's lots of security concerns. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Bob O'Shea so that he can give you some business note desktop updates. Thank you.
Mute. Thank you, Nancy, very much. Hi, folks. My name is Bob O'Shea. I am the business desktop, both Z and desktop go-to-market manager here at HP. I've got a couple minutes here that I'm going to go over basically similar highlights what Nancy showed you, what we've got coming up in the new in 2022 from a desktop perspective. First off, our overall portfolio. Hopefully, you're very familiar with our our products. This is the Pro through Elite desktop portfolio. There's not a lot of changes gen over gen coming on the new platforms. I did place stars where there are new where we've got new features and new changes. Currently on our G6 platforms, G6 and G7 for the 400. We've got the mini small form factor on the 400. For G9 coming out this year, we are adding the all-in-one. We're removing the all-in-one from the 600 series and launching the 400 series. It's going to be our 440 all-in-one. That's going to be a 24-inch all-in-one for a entry-level Pro series all-in-one PC. That's going to compete with our competitors at a 22-inch. This is going to be a 24-inch, so it's going to be priced competitively, so it will be a competitive advantage there. The reason we are pulling that out of the 600 series is because just like notebooks, our 600 series is now moving up to our Elite platform level. It's currently on the G6s, it's Pro. We're moving up to Elite. It's not just a rebranding. We're in an effort to simplify our supply chain systems. We've actually, for the G9 and the 12th gen Alder Lake processors from Intel, there's a lot more shared components from a system board perspective, et cetera, et cetera. So we've actually tightened the deltas between the 800 and the 600 platforms to where the 600 G9 desktops, really the only difference from the 800 is going to be vPro. The 600 will not be vPro capable, the 800 will be. Same changes from a support perspective that Nancy mentioned, that the 600 will now come with Elite level support. That's onshore support if you may have calls, the scheduled calling, the same sorts of features that she mentioned before. So we're really tightening, moving up the stack from a performance perspective with the launch and the advent of the 12th gen Alder Lake processors from Intel. Other than that, all the form factors are staying the same gen over gen. One other different nomenclature change on the 800 all-in-one, we're launching 840 and 870, not to be confused with our 840 notebook, but the 840 desktop all-in-one 24-inch, 870 will be 27-inch. So it's just a little bit easier to differentiate from the size differences there on a nomenclature perspective. Other than that, no other ID changes. What's new on the new platforms? This is the 800 G9 mini slide, but this really speaks to the entire portfolio. Our changes coming in 2022. All these platforms, the 600 and 800 launch in the March timeframe, the third week of March on the 21st. The 400 later in the May time period. But the big difference is we as you can tell, we're not doing an ID change. We did it last generation on the G9. The big difference is the Alder Lake technology from Intel. We're moving from 14 nanometer to 10 nanometer technology, and that brings different advantages to it, to the overall portfolio. I'm going to move down here real quick. This really easier to explain when we're looking at a little technical drawing here. As you all know, the current Intel integrated graphics supports 3 4K displays. The new 12th gen we're going to bump that up to 4 4K displays natively out of the box support. So in reaction to that, we are actually adding a third native port to the boxes that are shipping right from the factory. You no longer have to select the flex port for the minis or small form factors or towers in order to support 3 displays natively. You can choose to select the flex port to add a 4th port. So all of our boxes, the 800, 600, and 400 are going to come with dual DP and an HDMI port to support 3 displays right out of the box. If you want to increase that, if you utilize more than 4 displays, you can actually add the RTX 3050 Ti card to the 800, and that will come with additional 4 ports. So you can support up to 8 4K displays out of the box without the need for daisy chaining with the 800 G9 mini. That really allows you to, if you use a multi-display or even digital signage sort of environment or workflow, that will allow you to operate 8 displays without the need for daisy chaining. So it opens up the entire display portfolio to you. I know I'm running through this because I got 3.5 minutes left. This is just, I'm going to send this out for reference. This is just the differences in the 800 G9 desktop, gen over gen. The highlights in green are the new changes that we've made. I want to touch on the Z desktop portfolio because this where we've also had a couple of changes gen over gen on the new launches that are coming in the April timeframe. The first is on the Z2 G9 Mini. As you can see, it's a complete redesign. It looks completely different from the previous generation. It's really open. The big change is this is the front bezel of it. It opened up the entire thing for airflow. About the half the size of this on the back is the same mesh for airflow. So we've really increased the airflow for cooling, as well as with our in combination with our HP run quiet design. It reduced the acoustics of it as well. So it's got a more efficient cooling at a much lower decibel level. You know, for it's just so it doesn't sound like it's going into orbit like a lot of desktop workstations do. The big change coming gen over gen from the G5 to the G9 is one, we are no longer carrying Xeon processors on the Z2 lineup. This is for the Mini, small form factor, and Tower as well. We're moving to 12th gen CPUs. For the higher end Xeon replacements, we're moving to KSeries processors. The new generation from of the KSeries processor from Intel support ECC memory. So that eliminates the need for Xeon, the additional cost, because you can run ECC memory with multiple cores, up to 16 cores now on the Z2 Mini as well, without the need for a Xeon processor and the added cost that comes there with it. New gen over gen, you know, the PCI 4 Gen 4 interface as well for graphics and storage, and we're moving to DDR5 memory. So you've got super hyper speeds for both ECC and non-ECC on the Z2 Mini, small form factor, and Tower. The next change that we're making is on our Z2 small form factor. We are bumping up the power supply to a 550 watt power supply, and we are now moving to A4000 level class graphics as the top end graphics. How we're doing that is we're actually changing the shape of the desktop of the small form factor. For one of the chassis, we're moving to full height single width cards, and so as the A4000 is. So if you have customers that have real estate limitations but still want full graphics rendering support, that sort of thing from the A4000 cards, these the current chassis have the ports on the back, slots run horizontally like this. There's 4 slots. Now you can order the 550 watt chassis has 2 vertical slots to accommodate those full height single width cards. Same changes that we're making. I mentioned on the Z2 Mini. KSeries processors replacing the Xeon processors. We've added an M.2 slot, so you've got 3 M.2 slots for up to 36 terabytes of storage with RAID capability and the DDR5 memory. And this just speaks to the KSeries processor change now that does support, excuse me, ECC memory. I've also included in here our roadmaps, the launch when we're coming out with the new platforms. I'll send this out for your reference. Unfortunately, I'm out of time now. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to PDS or Lisa. They can get through to me. And please, thank you for the time. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us. That was fast. And back to you, Stephen.